Welcome to the Everyday Board Game Podcast with Daniel.
And Daniel.
Good morning, everybody. It's a Friday. We're ready for our top 8 debate. And this is the kind that you like the most, Daniel. This is auction and bidding games.
I'm just surprised I played as many games as I thought. I'm not a huge fan of either one of these, auction or bidding, and BGG likes to tie them together, so it's like a whole genre I tend to avoid. In fact, I had to go about 6 or 7 pages into Board Game Geek just to find my honorable mentions.
Yeah,
That
that
tells you
makes
how much
sense.
I play these games.
Well, now also, I mean, you're also of the mind that if it's like a pure auction or bidding game, it's got to be really good for you to even consider liking it. Like,
Yeah, exactly.
whereas if it's like a really good game like El Grande and it includes some auction and bidding, well, okay, that's
Okay, yeah, I can
yeah,
handle that, like El Grande. Yeah, so looking at our list here, I like one, two, three, four games on the list. I mean, thoroughly enjoy those games,
yeah,
and I'm okay with two more.
okay, that works. Yeah, I'm curious to see how this debate is going to go on. Now, one thing that we discussed briefly before we started recording is about half of these games are really not auction games. It's like
Yeah,
there's an auction as an element to it. So we did agree that when we're talking theme matching the mechanism, we're talking specifically that
typically
mechanism.
auction or bidding.
Yeah, auction or bidding, and if that makes sense to the game, or if it's just like a small little percentage of the game.
Yeah, and I'll go
Um,
ahead and go into it. I mean, uh, like the 2 and 7 of Five Tribes versus Abyss, auction is a small little thing in it.
right,
Five Tribes is where you're auctioning who goes first, which is important to the game
right.
because you need to determine who's going to make the best moves. In Abyss, the first thing you can do in that game is auction. Otherwise, everything else to still get you cards or things that you need,
Right.
you don't need the auction for.
So in the fact that those two games really don't have much auction bidding in them, the one that would match the mechanisms the most is probably like Abyss, which we're getting ahead of ourselves, like because
But
that
yeah,
really
those
is
are the two best ones I could pull
yeah,
up about the auction and bidding,
sure,
how they're a small part of the game. Whereas you got a game like For Sale on a list, that's all auction and bidding.
right, exactly. And then something like I want to bring up like Power Grid for example. Um, you auction off the actual power stations. The thing is, money management is a huge thing in that game as well. So it's really more impactful in that example, right? Because you're actively bidding away your primary resource. Whereas like say Five Tribes, you're bidding with more or less victory points because the coins are money.
Yeah.
So this will make for a very interesting debate. Um, but we just agreed that we should focus on the part of it that is auction and bidding, just because we had to make some
And the big
caveats
part
to
of it is
include them.
because, yeah, the big part of it is the 5 categories that we use to break this down. This way we can use it for every category. It doesn't change. It doesn't mold. It's what we're using to break down everything.
Yeah,
So, and that's fine when we're doing like a game about Vincent Dutray art or animal games. Whereas with this one, it's straight up a mechanism. So we have
yep,
to be a little bit more nitpicky when it comes to the mechanism part of it
right.
for game immersion.
Now and then of course the rest of it, like meaningful choices and stuff, that'll go down to what is a better game,
Yeah,
always.
exactly.
Cool. All right, so I'm glad we got this. Real quick before we get on to our honorable mentions and any of the polls that we have, we wanted to briefly talk about the Spiel coming up pretty soon, and that's going to be announced this upcoming Monday, which we will be filming, and we'll have the winners announced by then, I think.
Yeah, hopefully. Also, just to let everybody know on Monday, it may be a little bit late. We haven't determined just yet.
Yeah, yeah. So we'll let everybody know. We'll try and keep posted as best as possible. But we wanted to talk about the Spiel nominees real quick and make our predictions. So let's talk Kennerspiel first.
Okay.
Okay. So there are 3 games nominated,
Yeah.
Yep. That
The three games are the cartographers, the crew, and King's Dilemma.
now you own two of the three, and I've
Yes, I
played
do.
those two. We have the crew, which is a solid trick taking
Phenomenal trick
cooperative
taking
game.
game.
Yep. A cooperative game in that, and which is different.
Yeah,
I like what it does. There's definitely not a storyline there.
not really. It's just basically how do you force feed these tricks to certain people.
Right, and there's some cool
And you
stuff.
can't communicate. That's what I find good about it is that you can't really communicate except for that one card. And then
Yep.
once you use that, that's it.
Yeah, that's it. It had some really interesting factors in it, but I
Mind
feel
you, we've
like
only played the first four games, so we haven't really seen anything,
sure.
all the other changes that it does and stuff like that.
No, do you feel like it's other than difficulty, there's going to be big changes? Like I don't feel that there's that many
Well,
differences.
yeah, there might be. I don't know because there are. Because right now we have the number tokens. That's what we've been using, telling us who needs to get the first trick, who needs to get the second trick, and so forth. But there's also shapes on there, so
True, true, and we
I
haven't.
I want to see how those come into play.
Right, exactly. Like which suit, which shape. Sure.
Yeah.
Um, I'm gonna pull up a list of Kenner Spiel winners.
Well, last year, of course, was Wingspan.
Last year was Wingspan, which Wingspan is an engine building game, and none of these ones really are.
Well, they have a nice little collection in the Kenner. You have, I guess you could say, a negotiation game that has a legacy aspects to it in the King's Dilemma.
Uh huh.
Then you have the roll and write mechanism, or flip and write in this case, with cartographers.
Yep.
And then you have, what is it, well, we just talked about the trick taking, which is
The crew.
pure strategy because you got
Yep.
to be smart about how you play your cards out, especially when you're playing with 3, 4, 5 people, and you're trying
Right.
to let them know, hey, this is way it's mixed here, so we need to make sure Danny over here gets the 5 yellow because that's the trick he needs to get.
Yeah. Yeah, which makes a lot of sense. So, I'm looking at previous winners. Um, Last year was Wingspan, which we already talked about. The year before that was Quacks of Quedlinburg. So, deck
Push
building,
your luck there.
push your luck, yep. The year before that, 2017, was the Exit series.
Understandable.
So that's
So I see what I'm seeing a trend here is that they're very strategic games, but
mhm.
also on the simpler side.
Yes, yeah, and that reflected in the next one. The previous year before that, Pandemic Legacy Season 1, Time Stories were both nominated, but Isle of Skye won. And Isle of
Interesting.
Skye is basically Carcassonne Advanced.
Yeah.
Then
So if I
Broom
were to have to
Service.
choose the Kinner this year,
Well,
as
let's,
much as I would like cartographers to win the Kinner Spiel, I seriously think it's going to be the crew. Two reasons.
okay.
One, they gave it to an American game last year, and two, the crews had more time to get into people's hands in Europe because it's only just recently started getting over to America.
Yeah,
So I see the crew just having a better impact. You know what I
a
mean?
better background. Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes it interesting because now that I'm seeing it, so roll and rights have been nominated before, like That's So Clever, Ganchun Clever, that
Yeah.
was nominated a few years ago. But really, like Cartographers has a lot more strategy involved with it.
For a roll and write or a flip and write in this case, there is a lot of strategy in cartographers. How you place it, how your opponents will place the monster
Right.
out there to force you to, instead of building your nice little area over here, go over there and fill in those spaces because those monsters are going to be negatives for you.
Yeah. Whereas you also have King's Dilemma, which, from what I understand, a lot of tug of war, a lot of like choose your own adventure kind of stuff. I mean, maybe it's because I haven't played it. I do want to play it, but I don't see that this is going to win.
Hey, September they're supposed to be having a reprint, so I'm probably going to try to pick up a copy during that time.
There you go. All right. So if you had to make a guess, you're thinking the crew?
The crew. I think the crew. My dark horse would be cartographers out of the three. I think the King's Dilemma, I wouldn't be surprised if it doesn't win, just because the people who do the Spiel and the Kinderspiel like to shock people. Everybody thought the Crew was going to be in the Spiel des Jahres, so
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it was like a
so
shoe in for the, and it really, I don't know. I think it should have been. But with that being said, like you have games like Hanabi and just one winning the Spiel, then
yeah.
that makes me think that the Crew has a better chance.
Yeah, and
Um,
I think the reason why the Crew went into it is because with the Spiel des Jahres, it tends a lot to be family style games,
yeah,
ones that you can play with your 8-year old, 9-year old, 10-year old, and stuff like that. Where the Crew, I think because of how strategic value it is, some kids would not be able to pick it up.
sure. Yep. Yeah, I can agree with that. Now let's talk about
Well,
the
what's your pick for the?
my pick would be the Crew.
Yeah,
Yeah, same with you. Cartographers is a very close second. I can believe it if Cartographers won. Now realizing that last year was an engine builder, the year before that was also an engine builder, pool building game. Push your luck. Like I can see it. Like the most strategic of the games here is
yeah,
Cartographers.
yeah,
So it depends on how light they want to go.
yeah,
Um,
exactly.
the game of the year. There are three nominees. There
Otherwise
is
known as the Spiel des Jahres.
Yep, the Spiel des Jahres. There, it was My City by Rainer Knizia, Nova Luna by Uwe Rosenberg, and Corne von Mursel, and Pictures by Daniela E. Christian Store. Um,
So, not gonna lie here, I have not played a single one of those games. I
yeah,
played more of the Kinderspiel, or intrigued by playing more in the Kinderspiel
yeah,
than everything that's in the Spiel des Jahres. I do dig Juve games.
uh-huh,
I'm not sold on Reiner Knizia games. I've
right.
only played a handful, but not even a handful, probably like 2 fingers worth. And the other one I had known nothing about, but looking up and researching them, I honestly not sure who would win. I wouldn't be surprised with the Juve Rosenberg one, but I
Hmm.
think just because going through just the past last couple Spiel des Jahres, I think Pictures will win this one.
You think so?
Yeah, I
What?
think again going with like I was saying, like family friendly stuff that you can play with your 8, 9, 10-year olds. I think Picture out of those three, from everything I've researched, tends to be the easier one to play.
Okay, that makes sense. I mean, it. So Pictures is more obviously easier. Like it makes more sense. But My
Hmm.
City looks like it's actually easier to play because it's just tiles on a grid. But I see exactly what you're saying. Like that's more of a party game. So let's look at last year real quick as a comparison. You had Just One, Llama, and Werewords. I think Just
So there's your
One,
Reina Canizia right there.
yep, was Llama. I think Just One was the most innovative of the three.
Well, also Just One was my pick last year, and I actually got this one right
Yeah.
because of the simplicity of it. It's such a good game. It holds a lot of people, and it's so simple. You pick one word clue. You pick a one word clue that everybody has to give you clues for, or one word answer,
Uh-huh.
and everybody has to give you one word clues. If anybody puts the same clue, it gets eliminated.
Yep.
And so I think that's easy. That I just described basically the whole game. Whatever's left, you get to choose and try to figure out what the word is.
Yeah.
And all it is you're trying to get the most of the 13 card stack that you have. If you guess right, you get the point. If you pass, you lose the point, but you don't get penalized. If you guess wrong, you lose the point plus an additional card.
Yeah. Okay.
So,
All right, I can see that. Now let's compare that. So obviously, like the party game part of it, and the simplicity would be Pictures, right?
yeah.
But the year before that, we had the Mind, which was I mean, I know you don't like it, but it is the more innovative, right? Luxor, which is more of a
Is it
traditional.
innovative though? Is it though?
Yes,
Because to
absolutely.
me, it's the rehashing of the game because we just recently played it. Only instead of playing to 4 piles, you're playing to one collective pile, and you're still putting numbers in succession. It's literally the same game except for you have everything in your hand.
Yeah. Well, in a way, and you have to play it. Yeah. We're not going to get into this right now. I'm just saying, like comparatively wise, that's the more
It's not
innovative
the innovative
compared
one.
to the other two.
It
Uh,
ripped off a completely better game.
there was Luxor, which Luxor was like kind of like almost like a rolling move,
Yeah, I remember
almost.
coming out, and I remember getting Spiel and people were talking about it, but it just kind of died out of nowhere after the Spiel was announced.
Right. And then, but the winner was Azul, which would tell me that My City is probably more likely to win if that was if they followed in suit with that.
True, but Azul is simple enough that you could play with an older audience, with younger kids and stuff like that. So
Hmm.
depending on how every kid's different, but you could play Azul with your son when he was 8.
Yeah.
It's that simple of a game, and your son's quite smart, so.
Right. Yeah. That's not saying much, right? Azul, he could probably play Azul when he was 6 easily.
Yeah. Well, didn't you have him like learning binary when he was 6 years old or something like that? 6 or
Yes.
7.
Yeah.
So,
He's doing coefficients now, and he's about to go to middle school.
well, I
Um.
saw what was it? A picture, a post that your wife posted on Facebook, where he's reading like an algebraic book while you guys are just kind of all sitting
Yeah.
around.
Yeah. Yeah. He wanted to get ahead of the game. Yeah. He was doing his
Well, he's
final.
sitting there like, I hated algebra when I had to do it in 8th grade. What makes you think I want to do it?
Right? No, that's my boy. Um, let's look at the year prior to that. We have Magic Maze, which was a cooperative like movement game, which was kind of weird, innovative. It didn't win, and then we
I
also
did not
have
like it.
yeah, I like it. I own it. It's right behind me. But I totally understand why people don't like it.
Yeah, we
It's a
played it
new
at
level of stress.
Dice Tower West because our mutual friend Bryce wanted to try it out because he was thinking of getting something like that
Yeah,
for when his kids get older. And I was just bored to tears playing that game.
right. Yeah, I don't blame you. Yeah, I played with a few of my friends, and they can get stressed real easy during like the high strategy game. So one of our friends just grabbed the pawn and would just slam it in front of you, like like I don't understand what I'm supposed to do. But then you also had the Quest for El Dorado, which is a deck building racing game from Knizia.
Haven't played that one, but I've noticed that Kinesia has to have like a token game every year.
Just
Mind you,
about.
the dude's prolific. He has 600 games,
Yeah. Well, I mean, he's only won one prior to this, and that
Yeah.
was Keltis.
which was Lost Cities, the board game.
Yep. But then the winner was King Domino, another tile laying game. You have
Which
Azul,
goes to my
My
simplicity
City.
aspect of no, I King Domino, there is some strategy.
Yeah.
Now, if you're going to Queen Domino, I'd equate it more to My City. Whereas I'd get out of the 3, I'd consider King Domino more of the just one, simpler to play. Out of the 3.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Okay, I can agree with that. Yeah. I just think like there's something about the tile laying aspect of it because so many of the games that have won Game of the Year are tile laying games. But then
You're trying to say that Europeans like a certain style of game?
I'm trying to say I do.
Well,
and
you're saying most
and
of
I
the
agree with them.
jars were tile laying games.
Yeah, but then if we zoom back to 2015, or maybe this is 2016. Yeah, 2016, Imhotep, which was a very simple game, and Karuba, which was a tile laying game, lost to Codenames, a party game.
Which we equate to just one.
Yeah, so,
Because of the one word answer it
right,
includes.
right, exactly. So we
So
have,
it just depends on what mood they're in. It's from what it sounds like to me. Honestly, for me, I think pictures is my front runner. I think it'll win just because of the simplicity of it. And
yeah,
again, going back through those lists, King Domino, outside of Azul, where that is probably the more strategic game out of everything. I think the simplicity has won out most of the way. King
yes,
Domino, again, the most simplest out of those 3.
right,
Codenames. It's actually quite a simple game once you
it
get
is.
going. You just got to make sure you don't hit the assassin.
Yep,
So honestly, I just for me, and mind you, I don't know how these games play. I'm not gonna lie here. I have not played them. I've
yeah.
only researched them because, especially when they announced the Spiel des Jahres, I just think pictures is gonna end up taking it.
Okay, that's fair. So let's talk about real quick. Let's just tell the listeners what Pictures is. It's basically you're trying to get your neighbors to guess one of the 16 pictures. I think you have like a grid of 1 through 4 and A through D, and you get one of those coordinates, and you have to draw. I use the term loosely. Draw the picture with if one person might have to use like sticks and stones, another
Yeah.
person might have to do like just color cubes in a 9 or a 3 by 3 grid, another person might have to use like string, one might have to use like picture cards that kind of represent abstract stuff. So it's a very different game, in that you're just trying to clue people the right way using completely unconventional things. Whereas
Yeah.
My City is a polyomino laying tile game, and it's effectively like a multi-leveled roll and write in a way. Like you're just
Yeah.
laying tiles on the board, uh, but you flip over a card and you lay the appropriate tile. Everyone has the same set of tiles, but then it goes over a campaign of like 20 something games that add a little bit more into it every time. And then you have Nova Luna from Uwe, which you're effectively drafting the tiles, and those will give you certain colored tiles, and they all score in different ways based on where you put them in your board. I mean, Nova Luna is definitely the most intriguing to me, but it doesn't look the simplest. In fact, I would argue the crew is simpler than Nova Luna.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you there. I think it's just because there's so much more strategy in the crew is why I
Right.
went into the Kinner.
Yeah, I agree with you on
Even
that.
though it's so simple, there's a lot of strategy involved. We had when we played the 4 games, there was a lot of strategy involved.
Right.
And
I
that was the simple games.
So your pick is pictures. My pick is
Pictures.
going to be My City. I do think
I
that
wouldn't
My
be
City's going to get it.
My City would probably be my second pick. I think the Juve Rosenberg one is the one I don't think will win, which means it probably will win, just the way the Spiel des Jahres goes for me.
Right, exactly. We both agree Nova Luna's not going to win. Oh, it won. Okay, all right.
Yeah. Just
Huh.
the way the Spiel des Jahres works. But yeah, my pick is pictures. I think the way it's described, the way it plays, I think it's one of those games that will go down bigger in a bigger setting.
Yeah.
And anybody who votes on it, if they play it with their family, it's probably going to get a higher point total just because of the as we talk about it, the game immersion, the memorable moments from it.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, I completely agree. I'm curious to see on Monday what it's going to be. So
All right, so
We'll
your
come back
picks
to it.
are My City and the Crew.
Yep.
And my picks are Pictures and the Crew.
So we'll see who wins.
Yeah.
The-
Ready to
the-
get started though?
Let's get started.
Let's start on our honorable mentions. You want to do the audience first, or you want to do ours first?
Let's do the audience first.
Alrighty. So we had a big group here. Added. What did I say before stream? Like 8 games.
Yeah, 8 games were added, and we had something like our games had like 80
some
something
odd votes,
views.
yeah. So the first game on the list here, and I'm not going to be on the Twitch stream, so I can keep an eye on the chat because, again,
I will.
I don't know if you guys know this, my my phone died, literally died, so I have no access. So I have to use my computer for everything right now.
Yeah.
So the first game added was Modern Art.
Modern Art. Yeah, Reiner Knizia. I don't think I own a copy of this. I think I might own like a mini version of it.
Never
but-
played it.
Yeah, I if I do own it, now I'm just gonna check my list, but I don't think I own it. No, I already know I don't. I have a different one. But this one, so many people were like pumping for this one. They love this one.
Yeah, so Modern Art actually beat out 3 of the games that are in our discussion today.
Nice.
Had 6 votes. Next on the list here, do you have the list, or do you want me to just read it out?
Go ahead. I'm trying to pull it up right now.
Keyflower, which I've heard of. I have another game I have not played.
Yeah.
And you're going to hear that a lot. I think all 8 of the games that the fans voted added on, I've
Uh-huh.
never played.
Yeah, I know of that one, but very little.
Yeah. Next on the list is Amun Ra, and that had so Keyflower, Modern Art, and Amun Ra all beat out 3 of our games on the list with 6, 4, and 3 votes.
Oh wow. Okay. That Amun Ray, yeah, Amun Ra, Amun Ray, whatever it is.
Amun Ra, sorry.
That one I've heard.
I just aspirated, so give me a sec.
That's fine. Yeah, I've heard that one is absolutely amazing too, and it's also a Knizia.
I take it he likes his auction because we have a Knizia on the list.
Yes, we do. Yep.
So next on the list is Cargo Noir. Haven't played it, so I don't know nothing about these games.
Yeah, I think Cargo Noir, and I might be wrong. It's either that or Mystery on the Orient Express. One of the two has a really interesting auction mechanism where you go to a spot and you bid on it, and other people can go there and bid higher than you. But at the start of your turn, if you are the highest bidder, then you win it. But if not, you can either move to another spot and start over, or you can bid higher on your spot. What that sounds just like a normal auction at first, but what that means is that the time that you're taking the bid on one of them and upbid other players, you don't have access to other auctions, which is very neat. I think that's
Cool.
a very underutilized mechanism that I've only ever seen in one of those games. And I might be wrong. Forgive me if Cargo Noir is not the way that works, but I think that's the one that it does. Excuse me.
So, do you have your list yet, or do you want me to keep going?
Nope, I saved it, and therefore I can't find it.
All right, next on the list is Goa.
Goa, yes.
Again, not familiar with.
Yep, it's one of the ugliest games, that's for sure.
And a lot of these games are all added by the same guy. Sorley, I think his name is, from what I'm looking at here. Next on the list here, we have Medici.
Medici, oh, very cool. Yeah, I used to own this one. I hated it. It is Knizia. I'm not gonna lie. There was something about playing it that was just it was really unpleasant. Yeah.
Ship Shape is the next game on the list.
Haven't played that one.
So, as you can tell, guys, I don't like auction bidding games. I have not heard a single one of these games or played them. Next on the list is Princes of the Renaissance.
Okay. Not
And then
not
the
heard of that
final
one.
one on the list is, I've heard of the game, but I've never played it, High Society.
High Society, yes. High Society is awesome. It's a Knizia, and who knew, right? No, just recently reprinted by Osprey Games in a really beautiful version. I have the old Eagle Griffin version, and no, High Society is really fun. Basically, the idea is that you are a bunch of rich people, and you can only be judged by how fancy and completely over the top items you buy. And so, yes, it is an auction game, but I think there's like a second place mechanism where, like, you not only do you want to have a good standing, you also don't want to be broke either. So the person who spent the most money throughout the course of the game loses because they're the brokest amongst all of the High Society members. But then whoever has the best items after that is the winner. It's such a cool idea, and it works really well. So if you liked For Sale, you would probably like High Society too.
I may look into it. We have a few comments. You want me to go ahead and start reading them out?
Sure.
First off is Warren. He says Neo Hamat, which stands for the Estates.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not familiar with that one.
Sorley, in his comment, says Power Grid is not a good game. The catch-up mechanic is far too strong, and the games last too long. Sorley, I don't disagree with you. He also says Knizia himself considered Amun-Re as one of his very best games. I consider him as the best auction and bidding designer in the world, with games like Amun-Re, Ra, Medici, and Modern Art.
Yeah. Yep, I don't disagree with that comment, but there will be, coming up pretty soon, I will bring up another one of my favorite designers that is similar to Knizia that created one of the smartest auction bidding mechanisms I've ever heard of.
So Nagarathan says, where is Cyclades? We haven't played it, so it's not on our list.
Yep. Is Cyclades, like, does that have auctioning? I mean, I guess so, but...
Your guess is as good as mine. I think I've played it, I think. Either that or Kemet, I can't remember. But I don't remember it. It's been years since I played it. Chandler says, Artemis Project.
Okay. Sure.
And Garrett adds Adele Verpflicht.
Oh, hoity-toity.
Is that what it is? Hoity-toity?
Hoity-toity. Yes, that's from Klaus Teuber, which we'll be talking about on Monday. And that's the 1990 Spiel winner.
Sure.
The only reason I remember that name is because I just bought it a few days ago.
Alrighty. You ready
It's
to
the only
get
reason.
into our honorable mentions now that we're done with the Facebook post?
Yeah, sure. Since you struggled to do it, why don't you go first?
Alright, so the first game on my list is actually one of my, not least favorite, but I'll play it because my buddy owns it, but it's not something that I am intrigued on continuing playing. And this is what the problem is. I had to drag through the bottom of the barrel to find 3 honorable mentions, and that's Colosseum.
Okay, yeah, there's some bidding in there.
The auction and the bidding is very negligible to the game itself. The game is not a horrible game, but it's by far not a great game. I see why people love it. It just wasn't something for me. I had fun playing it, but it just, to me, it overstayed its welcome. I know I say that
Yeah.
a lot, but this is a game that should have been an hour, maybe an hour and a half, and this ended up being, 2 hours or something like that
Something
when we
like that.
played it?
Yeah,
Yeah,
when we
so-
played it, I had a bad taste too, and I was very nice about not saying it at the time. But the more I think about it, the less I want to play it again.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you on that. Feel free to interrupt me on my third honorable mention, because I put down Jorvik, and if we want to talk about that later.
I'll just jump into it with you because that is my second honorable mention is
Yep.
Jorvik.
Jorvik by Stefan Feld. I mean, it's just, there's something about that. You, me, and Dom had so much fun. Just like it was a constant, just, all right, I'll put that there. Oh, well, you're a jerk. Let's put it right behind you, And
And let's
because,
just make it more expensive, or
Yep.
I'm just going to put all my bags because I need that one card. So I'm just going to put them all there.
yep,
Make it super expensive. If you try to undercut me for it, go ahead, but I'm going to make you lose a lot of money. I love the way that auction bidding worked in that game.
yeah, exactly. It was really smart. But basically, the idea is that you're bidding on cards, and it's just like a set collection game, nothing too crazy. But the more cards you have, or you put out your meeples there. If you're the only
Yeah.
one there when it auctions off, you have to pay 1 coin. But if you're in the front of the line and there's 2 people, that's how many coins you have to pay. So 2 coins. If there's 5 people, it's 5 coins.
5 coins. Yeah.
And money is really tight in this game. So
Yeah, it's very
your
hard to get
choice.
money in it.
Yeah, and you can bid more than once on it. But if you decide, oh, I'm going to pass, then it's the next player, and they only have 4 coins to pay because that's all that's left there.
Yeah.
I loved it. It was so cool.
I had a good time. I had a really good time. I really like the upper track in the more expanded game.
Yeah.
Because if you're the first one there, yeah, it's cool. You reserve the card you want. But people just start going up there to reserve the other cards and making it more expensive because it's the same thing about the cards down on the track. Is
Yep.
You pay 1 coin if you're the only one there, and you pay 5 coins if there's 5 cards or 4 cards behind you.
Yep.
And I think it's so simple. But it was funny. It's like, when do I want to go up here? I know Danny wants that card, but I know I need that card as well. Do I take the risk and just go ahead and just save up to get the 5 at the beginning?
Mhm.
Or do I kind of head fake them and be like, okay, I'm going to reserve this card and then start playing where I actually want cards?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I like the mess out of it. It was really enjoyable, which is why it's my number 3 honorable mention. It's the least
That's why it's my number
auctiony.
2.
Yeah. So my number 2, we just jumped ahead, is Las Vegas by Ravensburger. And I believe Rudiger Dorn. I might be wrong on that. Forgive me if I am.
It's Las Vegas because you got Lords of Vegas and then you got Las Vegas.
Yeah, Lords of Vegas is the one where you're building the buildings on the strip. Las
Okay.
Vegas, you have 6 cards that, or 6 tiles that are numbered 1 through 6, and you roll all of your dice. You normally have like somewhere 6 to 8 dice or something. It's been a while, but
Okay, yeah.
each card has an amount of money above it that you're bidding on, and you roll all of your dice, and you can put 1 set of dice onto that card. So if I roll 3 ones, I could put all 3 ones onto the 1 spot, but that might not be the one I want to bid on. So I can, if I rolled a 4, which is what I really want to bid on, I might choose not to put out the 3 ones, giving me a majority, and instead put out the 4, getting me a minority there. So it's kind of interesting. It is how it forces you to bid in a very unconventional way, but I do like it.
So I have not played this one. I am intrigued by it. It looks interesting. The one I have played is Lord of Vegas.
Yeah.
Lords of Vegas.
Yeah, I'll have to bring over Vegas. I have the version that looks like it's in a giant die.
Oh yeah, the Target clearance one.
Well, the clearance one? Hold on. Yeah, the Target exclusive one.
No, it was Target clearance. Is when I almost bought it because it was like $2.
Oh, that's fair. Yeah,
And
you
then
should have.
Then I saw it was auction bidding. I was like, nope, go back on the shelf with you.
Yeah, it looked more like a mass market game, but it's a really solid game. The original one came in like the Alea style boxes behind me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So my number one on my honorable mention, since we've already done my 3 and 2.
Yep.
Is can you take a guess?
I thought it was gonna be Jorvik.
No, it's actually one of my favorite games from Restoration Games.
Favorite games from Restoration game. It's not Downforce, is it?
It is Downforce.
Downforce isn't. Well,
in the beginning, when you're auctioning off for the again, it's not a big part of it, but it was on my list, and I had to dredge the bottoms to get my honorable mention here. And
Bottom
once
of
I
the
saw
barrel.
Downforce on the list, I'm like, oh, that's going on my list here.
Yeah.
I really dig Downforce. The auction's not the big thing. It's just basically your cars that you're bidding on and trying to get. But it is important. It is an important part of the game because how much you spent on bidding will be deducted from how much you win during the game, and whoever has the most cash at the end of the game wins.
Yeah. Here, give me 1 second. I gotta pause. Sorry. My son came to tell me about Stardew Valley. He got a new achievement.
Yeah.
He hasn't quite learned that level of like, is this an emergency or not? I don't know, but that's okay.
That's okay. I got a new editor. Let's see if I can cut it out.
But I'm sure you'll find a way. My number one honorable mention is one that I've been talking about quite a bit the past few days. I brought this up in the games that need more love. This was my number 2. Do you remember what it is?
No, because I kind of tend to tune you out when you're talking about games.
Wow, thanks. My honorable mention is Going Gone. It's a really
Yeah.
It's an underrated auction game. It's pure auction, but it's also part dexterity, part chaos. Set collection game. It's super smart, very simple game. I'm not gonna belabor it anymore. It's just pure auction, but a lot of people don't like it, and I think it's because of that speed element. Like there's some those are kind of like the same people who dislike Going Gone because of the speed element are gonna dislike Pendulum because there's timers. It's like just understand the intent here. Come on, it's not there's a point to it.
Well, I'm not gonna like Going Gone because it's an auction game, not because of the speed of it.
No, you might like it because of just how silly it is. Because
lies.
With as many hours as we put into coconuts and tumbling dice, yeah, lies on your end, sir.
No, because I like dexterity games. So coconuts and tumbling dice are fun. I don't like auction bidding games, so therefore I won't like.
But this is a dexterity game.
We'll see, but I doubt I'll like it.
Yeah.
I've already made the establishment that I probably won't like it because of the auction bidding part of it. I don't like auction and bidding again. Just to come up with 11 games.
Why is it that you don't like it? Is it just boring for you? Is it?
Yeah, I don't have fun playing it. There's. Like I said, other than like Five Tribes and Abyss, where it's a small part of the game, I don't mind if it's a small part of the auction or the game itself.
Right.
But if it's the whole game, there's one game that it's the whole game that I've actually enjoyed, and that's For Sale.
Yeah, but so like it yes, auctioning is the big thing, but the fact is it fixes the boring part of it because you're chucking cubes into cups. Like, I mean, it's you're not waiting for, do you want to bid 2? Okay. Do you want to bid 3? Yes. Okay, do you want to bid like
Don't
I
even get
agree,
me
that's boring.
started when they do blind bidding. That annoys the Jesus out of
Yeah.
me.
See, I don't disagree with you on that, and I think a lot of people agree with you on that basis, which is why they don't like it. But going, gone solves it because it's just literally 10, 9, 8, and you're chucking violently into, it's like, oh, I want that one? Okay. It's silly. It's good, silly fun.
Nah, I'm good.
Alright.
If I'm gonna play something that's gonna be loud and you're throwing things, I'd rather play Pit.
That's true. Yeah, the pit is pretty great too. That's kind of negotiation, isn't it? It's just chaos.
It's chaos, is what it is.
Yeah.
I'm not good at it. I just enjoy playing it because I get to hit the bell every once in a while.
Yeah, exactly. Yay, I won. All right, cool. So then those are our honorable mentions. We're going to take a very, very quick stop in the video so that way we can get ready for our first round.
Finals.
Yep. Here we go. And we are back for the quarterfinals of the Top 8 Debate auction bidding games. We just went over our honorable mentions as well as the audience's honorable mentions. Just one more thing as a clarification. As always, the way we pick this list is we take the top ranked Board Game Geek games, the top ranked ones on Board Game Geek, organize it by ranking, and we pick the 8 that Daniel and I have both played, with a couple of caveats. There was I think 1 or 2 games that we had to just remove from the list because it really wasn't much bidding, or if it wasn't enough to justify it being in our list in our opinions. Why do we pick the 8 that we've played versus the top 8 that are ranked?
Just where we can make arguments for it. If we can't argue a game we've never played for, we could. Doesn't mean it's going to be a good argument. So that's why we go ahead and pick the top 8 games that we both have played for that reason.
Yep.
Also, want to clarify, and well, not really clarify, but we try to be smart about the top 8 games we pick.
Yep.
So when we pick the top 8, if we're going into the page 3, 4, or 5 just to get our 6, 7, and 8 game, then we might not do the topic for the time being until we play more games. So because we want to play the games that have the votes.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And also some of these you'll notice that like our very first one, Power Grid, only one part of it is auction. And so, but it is a significant amount. Yeah, it's an important part of the game.
So off the top of my head, I can remember the one game we kicked off this list, Game of Thrones, the board game, 2nd edition.
Yes.
We decided not to put it on the list because the negotiation or the auction and bidding in it is very, very small, and it doesn't drive the game in any way, really.
Yeah, and some could argue that like it's like diplomacy that you're bidding on what you're gonna be playing, but that's really not auction.
Whereas, as
bidding.
We're talking with our number 1 seed, Power Grid, it's a part of the game that helps drive it. It's an important part because you're bidding on, I believe it's the power grids themselves.
Yes. Yeah, you're bidding on the power stations. Yeah, and it is literally an auction. There's no doubt about that.
5 tribes. Well, we talked about it earlier. The auctioning in it determines first player who goes first, and that can be important when you're trying to make your combos through the McCollum mechanism.
Yep.
That's why it's in Abyss. The whole first part that you can do, the press your luck auction bidding aspect of it, are all in that one line. That's an important driving force of the game.
Yep.
Especially at the very beginning of the game.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Of course, when we get into Dungeon Pets, there's the auctioning for the animals. It's a small little bit, but it's important to the game itself. So,
and then
that's
also
why we went with some of these.
Right, and how many goblins? Yeah, and how many goblins like you bid for each location? When you send them out, that is a very important part. Where you'll notice, For Sale and Raw both are pure auction games.
Pure auction. Well, For Sale more than Raw. Raw has a lot of that push your luck aspect on it, and then it goes into the bidding war.
Yeah, that's true. I mean,
For Sale is straight.
Yeah, straight
Here's
auction.
What I'm doing to buy this. Okay, now I got this. I'm using these to buy this.
Yep. Exactly. So let's start with Power Grid and Biblios.
Before we do that, why don't we
Oh,
go
okay.
ahead and let everybody know all the games and where they're seated?
I suppose that could help. We'll have our number one seeded power grid. I can't talk. Number one seeded game, Power Grid.
Facing our 8 seed, Biblios,
Our number two seed, Five Tribes.
versus our number 7 seed, Abyss, or as I like to call it, the Bruno Cathala bracket.
Our number three, El Grande.
Versus the number 6 seed, For Sale.
Our
If we
num-
were just doing auctioning alone, For Sale should win this because
Right. Yeah, it's just auctioning. And our number four seed, Raw.
versus our number 5 seed, Dungeon Pets.
All right, ready to do this?
As always, we have 5. Yes, we'll do that. We have 5 categories that we break down these games in. If you want a detailed list of it, you can find it on our Twitter account at EVG Podcast 2020. But those 5 categories are ease of play,
Art and production,
replay value,
meaningful choice,
and game immersion. And as always, tiebreaker is.
the people's vote.
All right, let's go.
All right, so Power Grid versus Biblios. Now I own Biblios. I really like it. I don't remember how to play it off the top of my head.
I sort of remember how to play it off the top of my head.
I mean, I do know how to play it, but I'm just,
There is auctioning in it because you're basically auctioning out for I think it's the books or something like that. But you got to be smart about how you're doing it.
Yeah.
It's more set collection than it is auctioning. Right. And you know how I feel about Power Grid, so.
Yeah, I know you strongly dislike Power Grid, but I do appreciate how you always try to put your bias away from it, and you.
And in all honesty, the reason why I'm not a fan of Power Grids is whose fault is that?
So, for our viewers at home, let's clarify this real quick. I taught it to him, or to Daniel, a number of years ago when I would say you were mostly new to games still. I mean,
newish.
Newish,
about,
yeah.
About 6 months, 7 months, or 6 months to a year when in the hobby.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean...
Because it was at the O Shop when they had the second room.
Right. This was definitely one of the heavier games that you played first. Now, and I made the clarification that you can only buy one power station, which is what we're going to talk about here in a minute. What I neglected to emphasize is that you may build power stations in cities. You could build more than one. But the group misunderstood me and thought that, oh, well, since I'm buying the power stations, then I only one at a time because they're being auctioned off, then I can only build one power station per city per turn, which
turned a game that's only supposed to be like an hour and a half into 3 hours.
Yeah, and so, I mean...
Yeah, because I remember when you came over, and it was already like 8:15, 8:30, so the thing used to go from like 5 to 9. We started at about 6 or so.
Yeah.
And
it's like, man, this game is taking forever.
You guys are still playing? What's going on here? And then we were saying, well, it's because, we can only build one at a time. It's like, no, you could build more than one. Everybody at the table dropped what they were doing and just dead-eyed you. And just like, what?
Yeah. And I remember very distinctly that I never said you couldn't build more than one, but I get where the understanding was there. And it was already like, I mean, that's a heavier game too. Yeah. Explaining it, you're talking like a 10-minute rules explanation, and like if people don't notice one sentence, I forgive it, right?
The thing is, it was already a long game to begin with because we had a full contingency. We had like I think
6, yeah.
6. We had 6 people at that table, and I just remember everybody dropping, like people had stuff in their hands, like they were counting their money and stuff like that. And everybody's just like,
"Are you
kidding?" Just like, "Oh, yeah."
I'm gonna die. Like I need someone to escort me to my car after work here. Oh my goodness. But no, like so, like you've even said
memorable moments is where it's going to be killed off. But I'm trying to take my
right. Like you understand why people like it and the strategy behind it. And
honestly, out of the 2 games, I think Power Grid should move on just because.
Yes.
I think Ease of Play is the only one I would give to Biblios.
Yes. Yeah.
Replay value with the expansions and stuff like that, and the minimum number of plays and the scaling wheel. But the minimum number of plays, I'll give to Power Grid. Expandability, I'll
Yep.
give it Power Grid.
Yep. Because they do have
Meaning-
expansions.
Yeah, meaningful choice, impacting other players. That's very important in Power
Yep.
Grid. Whereas
Yep.
Biblios, I think it's just strictly 2 players, right?
It's 2 to 4. But the
Yeah.
fact that you only remember it as possibly being only a 2-player game, that kind of shows
Yeah.
it is 2 to 4, but I mean that's still a small scale. It doesn't change the game any
Yeah.
really. I mean, I think you take out some cards, but mostly it's the same game regardless.
And then we go into theme matching mechanism. Let's go ahead and do like the game immersion. So because art and production, Biblios is a much prettier game
Yes.
when it
Agreed.
comes to the art part of it.
Yes.
But when we go down to the production part of it,
Yeah.
there's more stuff
And Power Grid.
well produced in Power Grid.
Yeah. And
And the design functionality is much better in Power Grid.
right, the iconography makes perfect sense. There's nothing that's complicated. It's a dense game. So I do agree with that.
So we go into game immersion, and this is where we're talking about theme matching mechanisms.
Yes.
I guess I'd have to give that to Power Grid because
would.
you are bidding on the power stations, which are important for the game. Biblios, I know there's a bit of an option when it comes to the books, but it's not like
It's more like
you're trying to
card
have
play.
The best library, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not memorable. Per
Yeah.
se.
And also on Power Grid, I mean, you're bidding for contracts, like you're getting these stations built, you're trying to do it as efficiently as possible so you can put your money towards the resources and building up the Power Grid. Thematically, it makes sense, because you would bid to get those buildings built and to buy the contracts. So thematically, it's as exciting as building a Power Grid.
Yeah. So I'm actually going through our past list here, and I don't think the number 1 seed has ever been upset by the 8th seed on our list.
No, not yet. I don't think so.
I'm looking
And
through it.
today
Yeah,
will be
I'm
no
sure.
different.
Yeah, and today will be no different. Oh, wait. We have had an upset. Back when we talked Rio Grande Games,
Oh, yeah.
which was in early May, Carcassonne took out Puerto Rico.
Yep. I remember that. Because I fought hard for Carcassonne.
Yeah, yeah. Everything else has only been the number 1 seed moving on.
Yeah.
That's the 8. So that was the only upset we've ever had.
There you go. Alright, so let's talk Five Tribes
Hold
versus
on.
Abyss.
Yeah. 5 Tribe versus Abyss. This hurts. This hurts me a lot.
Yeah.
These are my 2 favorite games on this list. Mind you, auctioning's not a major factor in these games.
No.
These are my 2 favorite games on this list. And in fact, I don't know, you got 5 Tribes right over here, and then Abyss is like down here somewhere,
Yep.
right behind me.
Have you noticed
I-
my change in shelves here, by the way?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yamatai, where, was it Small World used
Small
to be?
World used to be. Yep, we have a Yamatai. Talking Bruno Catala. So we have 5 Tribes, yes. And then
Yeah.
I don't own Abyss, but
I have Abyss. It's behind me. I do have one of the expansions. I do want to pick up the other expansion. So that tells you how much I actually love. I don't have
Huh?
any of the expansions for 5 Tribes for the simple fact that that's already a hard enough game. I don't want to add more to it. I love the game
Yeah.
as it is by itself. The mountains are cool. A buddy of ours has it. I think I want to get like the gin pack. That's the only thing I really want to get is where you get the extra gins.
yeah. Yeah, I think I have that one. I think that's the only thing I do have.
No, the one thing I have, because what people don't realize, I have an original copy of 5 Tribes.
With the slaves, yeah.
Yeah, so I had to take them out. I had to buy the fakirs because just I understand the historical context for it, but it's not trying to teach you anything of the historical context. They're just in there, so I wanted to trade it over to the fakirs.
Yep, that makes sense. Cool. Awesome. So let's it's like your same argument with Lewis and Clark.
Yeah,
Like you'll still say Native Americans versus Indians, which is
Indians.
more historically accurate technically.
Well, that and partially because I used to date a Native American at one point in time, and I understand the meaning behind why they don't like it.
Yep. Makes perfect sense to me. Alright, 5 Tribes versus Abyss. I'll take 5 Tribes. I prefer that one a bit more.
Oh, that's fine. I either way, I'm happy one of these games are moving on. Either way, I'm sad one of these games are being eliminated here.
Yeah.
So I'll go ahead and take Abyss. So Abyss, the auction and bidding in it is it's just at the very beginning, but it's interesting because the auction and bidding is combined with push your luck, and I do find that very intriguing with the push your luck aspect on it. And another reason why I like the auction and bidding in Abyss is because even though you're losing out on something, you're gaining something in the end, because every time you lose out on a
Right.
card, they have to pay you the money rather than it
Right.
going to a bank. And I think that makes auction and bidding so much better. It's like, oh, you want this because it's my turn? Well, give me the money for it then.
I'll
This
accept
way
that money
I
from
can
you.
use it on someone else's turn and use that same money that you gave me. Oh, here's that pearl back. I want this card now.
Right.
And so the reason, the way it goes is you have 3 actions that you could do in the very beginning of the game. You can do the pressure luck aspect of it, where you're flipping cards up, and then it goes around the table, and people are bidding. So the first card, I think, is 1 pearl. And if someone buys that, then the next card becomes 2 pearls, and the next card becomes 3 pearls, and so forth, depending on if they're bought before you had a chance to actually take them.
Yeah.
And whatever's left over goes down into the second part, where they get sorted out by their suit, I guess you could say. Yeah, suit is the best way to say it. And then, so when there's enough cards in there, you can be like, well, I need a lot of crabs, so let me go ahead and just grab the entire thing of crabs that is in the second part. Because you need those for the third part. You need a certain amount of suits and a certain amount of numbers to pay for lords, which will help you pay for other stuff later on, for keys and stuff like that. And I do love the push your luck aspect in it. It's just very negligible. It's there. And I do like
mean the
that
auctioning.
concept where they have to pay you to
Yeah.
take it.
In a way, that's almost like an I split you choose mechanism.
Yeah.
Slightly, right? Yeah, I agree. There's definitely more auction and bidding in that than Five Tribes, where Five Tribes you just you bid on turn order.
And what you're doing is basically giving yourself negative points.
Yeah, it's like I'm willing to lose this many points to be first
Because
this turn.
I can possibly gain more points than I lost.
Yeah, which is more impactful in the game than at first glance. So let's think about this real quick. Five Tribes, yeah, you have the tiles. Turn order is super important because everybody has access to the same board. You know which pieces you can move. You know how it's going to affect.
Call up pieces that you can actually do.
Yep, exactly. It's really important that sometimes you go first, whereas like early in the game, there's good moves everywhere, so it's less important. But as the game starts dwindling down, it becomes very, very important that you move the right pieces when you can. So the auctioning and bidding is really, really an important factor in that, because you need to know exactly when to play your hand, when to do this, and when to decide to be that first player in that turn.
Yeah.
So as for art and production, they're both that's got to be a wash.
Gorgeous games.
They're both
and
gorgeous
the design
games.
works for both of them,
Yes.
honestly.
Yeah, I feel like there's more iconography in Five Tribes, but it's also a little vague in Abyss. So like they kind of cancel each other out. So yeah, that art and production has to go for a tie between the two. Meaningful choices though, Abyss is easier to play.
Yeah, so Abyss would go to ease of play. So right now we have a wash. We got ease of play. Meaningful choice, I would have to get the Five Tribes.
Yes.
Just for the simple fact is that you can impact other players more impactful, I guess you can say, in the game, especially if you take a Moncala issue and they're like, no, I wouldn't do that one and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So long-term strategy, I guess the same. With Abyss, you can't really do a long-term strategy.
Yeah.
So we found this out the hard way. Like in the base game of Abyss,
There's no long-term.
Dom, his long-term strategy he wanted to see if he could win through battling in warfare, and he couldn't. He was actually in last place because that's why they had to build an expansion to fix that, make battling more important.
Yeah, exactly. But
and which would go down to the arbitrary choices. There's more likely to have arbitrary choices in, say, Abyss than Five Tribes because it won't hurt you as bad.
So meaningful choices definitely goes to Five Tribes. So we have technically 1 and 1, 1.5 and 1.5.
So we're going to go to replay value first because I think this one should go to Abyss, and I'll explain why.
Okay.
Length of time and scaling well. Abyss does play shorter, even at
Okay.
the full amount of players, then does 5 tribes. And it scales well because it's basically simple. You do this, you grab this, you do this, same game all the way through.
Okay.
Minimum number of players for full experience.
Uh,
I'll give that one to 5 tribes.
that would be 5 tribes, just because each meeple has their own abilities.
When the meeple comes out.
Sure.
However, expandability I will give to Abyss because 5 tribes does almost meet it when it comes to expandability. I think it has 1 full expansion and 1 small expansion.
No, 5 tribes has 2 full expansions, if I'm not mistaken.
Because they got the mountains one, and then they have the Gen Pack. I can't remember what the other one is.
There's another one. The 6th tribe. We'll tell you what. Let's pull up Board Game Geek real quick. Let's just double check. You check Abyss, make sure how many expansions that they have.
I know how many expansion Abyss has.
Okay.
I have one of them.
Then I will look up 5 tribes.
In America for the longest time.
Oh no. 5 tribes. Okay.
Pork, 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 pork.
Yeah, you hear my dog alarm going off. Yep. There is 2 expansions for 5 tribes. The Artisans of Nakala or Nakala. Yep, and the Whims of the Sultan. Those are 2 full expansions. Then you have the Thieves of Nakala, which I think is the Jin pack. Then you have 3 promos.
Yeah, I'm not counting the promos, honestly, because Abyss has promos too.
Yeah.
But the reason why I am choosing Abyss for this one is that the one that you're talking about, the one that adds the mountain pack.
Mm-hmm.
So let's see here. I'm trying to find the expansions for this. Because I know it has 2 for sure. I'm just trying to see if there's any more.
Okay.
Where the heck do you see expansions at?
I just searched for 5 tribes.
Ah, here it is. Got it. Well, it's its own list. So there is... Okay, so there's 1 expansion, 2 expansion, and then there is 2 promos, basically.
So then that would go to 5 tribes then, because of the Jin pack.
And I'll explain why I don't consider the Jin pack a big one. And because the expansions themselves in Abyss actually affect the game in a lot more ways. Basically, hold on. I'm checking
5 tribes does as well. Yeah, they have a whole new sets of tiles, Jin packs, cards.
But don't take, okay. Oh yeah. So actually, their promo card is actually like a little mini expansion here, from what I'm seeing. That goes into the ally deck.
Because, so, 5 tribes has 2 big expansions, 1 mini expansion. Where Abyss has...
And I'm trying to see what these are. Oh no, what was that? Okay. So, these ones I'm not too familiar with. Okay, so this is like a promo / mini expansion on this. This comes from the Advent Calendar.
Okay. Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, it's the mini expansion. Okay.
But it's the key monster tokens. And the reason why, and here's why I'm trying it. Because of what they add to the game, other than like the mountains that I can remember in the new Jin cards, Leviathan adds a whole nother plethora because you can actually pull in these other lords and you can take Cursed Pearls, which are negative points at the end of the game. I do have that expansion in the Kraken, which is the one that's important because it makes fighting much more valuable. It enhances the game. It's kind of, so for me, the Kraken is what I would consider Valhalla is for Champions of Midgard.
Okay. But the 5 tribes expansion adds, I think, 6 and 7 tribes.
And also makes the game a lot longer than it needs to be.
Well, I mean, but that's expandability,
I mean,
though.
if you want to give it to Abyss, fine, or to 5 tribes, I'll give it to 5 tribes. You're not taking thinking out of it.
No, I was saying we call it a wash because they have effectively the same amount of promos.
So we got another title. So we're going expandability.
Yeah.
Minimum number of plays in full experience, and so I guess it's a wash. So we got 2 there.
Okay. And then so now we have immersion.
1 and it goes into game immersion.
Yep.
Theme matching mechanisms, we've already talked about this.
Yes.
We would give it to Abyss.
Abyss, yeah, because the auction part of it is the integral part, and since we're arguing auction games, that just makes sense.
In bidding, but we don't have a lot of bidding games on this.
Yeah. Yep, that makes
And
sense.
then interacting with other players, that would go to Five Tribes itself.
Yes.
Even though neither one has like a lot of player interactions, Five Tribes
Right.
is more about just messing around on
Since
the
you're all
board.
working the board, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. But memorable moments, I don't know that either of them have any more than the other.
I own both games. I can tell you which one has more memorable moments for me. And it's going to hurt me.
Is it
but
Five
I think
Tribes?
it's Five Tribes.
Okay.
And it goes along the lines because, and it's not really going to hurt me. Five Tribes, I like Abyss more than Five Tribes, but it's not saying much.
Right.
But it's Five Tribes because I've had more times where people get fed up because I took a thing, or even when they're like, "Oh, I didn't even see that. That's a good move. Wow."
Yeah.
And it's just because of that little bit of player interaction that Five Tribes actually has.
Right. And like there's the moments like say the assassin destroys a meeple, you're like, that ruined my whole turn.
Yeah, exactly.
How dare you? Yeah. I can agree with that. It's like I knew I should have bid to go first.
I was fighting hard for Abyss because I wanted to see an upset in this one, but yeah, Five Tribes is just going through our bias, unbiased opinion here. It's the better game.
Yeah. Yep. I don't think I applied too much bias in arguing how many expansions there. How? I just counted how many expansions there were. I don't know how that's bias.
Because you hate Abyss.
I don't hate Abyss.
You dislike Abyss strongly.
I don't dislike. No, I would play it again. I didn't care for it. I'm indifferent to it. Like I was fine with either of these. Out of all of the Days of Wonder games, Five Tribes is not my favorite in any sense of the word. But
out of all the Days of Wonder games,
yeah, Quadropolis and Ticket to Ride.
3.
You have Small World, don't you?
I used to. I got rid of it.
Yeah. I don't blame you.
Honestly,
Anyway.
especially because the digital version does it so much better. There's less cleanup that I have to deal with and all those stupid little
right.
shits.
Yeah. All right. So our next one is going to be El Grande versus For Sale.
Honestly, I already know what should move on, to be truthfully honest.
What do you think?
For Sale.
For Sale?
El Grande is a good game, don't get me wrong, but the auction in it is so negligible compared to For Sale. That is straight up an auction bidding game. You're playing cards to buy cards to play in the second round to get points at the end of the game.
Yeah, and the second phase in For Sale is so meaningful. Like what makes it so interesting, in my opinion, and why I like For Sale so much, is that an auction, if you of course are bidding for houses that are numbered 1 through 30. So of course you want something like a 30 or a 29 or 28. You want the higher numbers. But if all of those are back to back, like if you have auctioning off 27, 28, and 29 in one auction, you're like, I'm okay bowing out early. I don't have to pay a lot of money for a high card.
Yeah.
And the fact that there's negative or zero value checks that you're bidding with those properties on, like you don't want to be the lowest. That's a cool headspace that you have to go for.
Yeah,
it's like, well, when do I throw my lowest one?
Yeah, and for me, like El Grande, it's a good game. I like it. I enjoyed it when we played it. The fact is, I don't see it as an auction bidding game. I see it as an area control game. That's really where its meat and potatoes is trying to control the board.
Yep.
But if we go through our list, Ease of Play, For Sale.
Yes.
For Sale could be taught to basically anyone, and they get it. Some people might not like it, but it's such a quick, simple game.
Yeah.
It could be easily played.
I haven't seen anybody who disliked the game. I've seen people who are like, I don't mind it, and people who absolutely love it, and even you've said it. As far as auction games go, you'd play that.
Oh, yeah.
Ease of Play.
Production. Ease of Play. Yeah, easily we said For Sale.
For Sale.
Replay value. Honestly, this is going to be tough for me, but length of time and scaling well, that's going to be easily For Sale.
Yeah.
Minimum number of plays for full experience. You only really need one to get the full experience for it, where El Grande. And expandability, of course, is going to go to El Grande because it's got the big box where you have all the modulars and stuff like that. So I'll give that to El Grande.
Yep.
However, meaningful choices and impacting other player, as important as El Grande is for like the area control and trying to spend it, you have to play your auctioning and your bidding smartly.
Yes.
So as we're saying, do I want to play this now, or do I want to hold off on it, or do you want to go ahead and do this and take that card away from him because I can know he's got those other ones in his deck?
Yeah, and knowing that you have to still pay half of what you've bid when you bow out. How long do you stay in?
Yeah. So I think that's very important, especially when it goes down to the long-term strategy as well. And because the fact that it's a full auction bidding game, there's not really any arbitrary choices that you can make that
Right.
will not affect you.
Yeah.
The only arbitrary choice basically is in there is that you have to at least bet one. The person that starts the bid has to at least bid one.
Yeah. Yep.
That's the only arbitrary choice, and that's not really an arbitrary choice because you're forced to do it. It's like playing poker and having to do the blind.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's not so much arbitrary, it's required.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, game immersion, I would give that to Porcel for one reason: theme matching the mechanism.
Yes.
It straight up matches it because
And it
is
does make
awesome.
sense, buying real estate at a cheap cost, selling it for more, that actually thematically is pretty solid.
And then the interaction with other players. Now we do have impacting other players, but interacting with other players. There's a lot of table talk going on here.
Yep.
We're calling each other's names. We're telling each other we don't want that. You
Yep.
don't need that. Just go ahead and let me have
Excuse me.
it. Which
Um,
leads into memorable moments. I've had more stand-up moments type situations during this game.
Yeah, for sale. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I love the art on it really kind of brings into that. Like you're either bidding on like a
On a
cardboard
really nice
box.
mansion or this little trailer park.
Yeah, the little tiny cardboard box versus like a space station. It's like, come on, like this is ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's so over the top, but it's so fun. Yeah, it would be for sale then.
Yeah, it would be for sale, but I'm going to go ahead and go into the art production, and I'm going to tell you I prefer for sale over El Grande. El Grande is
Art.
not a pretty game.
Yeah, production it's solid.
Production is solid. It's wood pieces, but it's cubes. That's all it is. You got that little giant meeple guy and the itty bitty little meeple guy.
Yeah, but you also have the tower, and you
Yeah.
have the
Okay.
dial discs and the cards.
We've played more cube tower games. That's probably one of the worst ones we have played.
Yeah. No, whereas if you talk about the design, like the art design, there's nothing confusing about for sale.
Not at all.
You can have some confusion as to the amount of meeples versus the ability and
So
and
I've
where
found a way
the
we can
places
work with the
are.
graphic design.
Huh.
Could you teach this with the graphic design to new players versus old players? Because I can also tell you that we could play For Sale with new gamers and old gamers, and everybody would pick it up pretty simply.
Yep.
You do that with El Grande with new gamers, and they're going to walk out.
Yeah. Yeah, they're gonna look at it and go, oh no, oh no. Well, I don't like how it has like the brown gradient over everything in El
yeah.
Grande. And then like some of the tokens are just hard to see and understand. Yeah, that would go to if it had a facelift and had like Vincent Dutrait make the art. Holy
Or
cow!
Andrew Bosley, look what
Yep.
he did with Kalis.
Yep, exactly. Any of those guys would do amazing things to it. But as for where it is right now, art and production goes to for sale.
Yeah. And so with that, For Sale moves on. It will be facing Power Grid in the next round.
All right. And our final one will be Raw versus Dungeon Pets. Now, Raw can be either version that we want. I think we have to give it the benefit of the doubt, and I will be arguing the Windrider version of it.
The prettier version is what you're saying?
The prettier version, but also the little harder to see one.
Okay, that works for me.
Because it does bump up the component quality and the art, but the graphic design is worsened because of it. Versus
I'm
like the
gonna go with
Uber Play
Dungeon
version.
Pets then, and this is going to be difficult for me because I've only played Dungeon Pets
Yep.
once. I do remember it. I do remember the auctioning part of it itself is such a small component. It's an important component because
Yeah.
you're trying to get the animals and stuff like that. How many workers you're sending out for the day?
Yeah.
This way, because if you're sending them out there, you can't use them during here.
Yeah. That's pretty much it.
Yeah, and so as important as is, to be truthfully honest, I know which one I would play again out of these two, and that would be Dungeon Pets because one, it's got one of my favorite mechanisms. It's got worker placement in it, and two, because the auction and bidding is such a negligible thing, it makes it more intriguing for me. But I'm trying to take my bias out of this.
Right. Yeah.
Now, when it comes down to it, I'm going to give art and production hands down to Dungeon Pets. Hands down.
Yeah. Even
The
with it
art
being
is
the
gorgeous.
better version.
The
Yeah.
rule book is hilarious when it comes to graphic design.
Yep.
And not just to mention, the board is easily understand. Now, there is a lot of iconography going on
Sure.
there, but that when you're playing a heavy Euro, you're going to get that no matter what. Five Tribes is just as bad when it comes to
Yep.
iconography, so
There
I'm not gonna knock it too much.
there's one thing that I would knock Dungeon Pets for, and it's not enough to disagree with you, but the dials, the color dials that you have on the pets themselves are
Yeah,
for us to see, but that's going against Raw where everything's a
the
washed out
whole
brown.
game is hard to see.
Right.
And also pieces and components. I think, what is it? The Dungeon Pets just is a prettier game than Raw. No matter what, you're going with the Wind Rider. I've seen pictures of the
Yeah.
Wind Rider game as well as the one you actually own is the which one? The
I own the Wind Rider version.
okay, so yeah, it's not that pretty.
It
It's not.
I do like it. One thing that I like about their production is the embossed board. I really do think that that's a really neat step up. How certain parts of it have the UV spot ink, like that's a really good component quality. Whereas like Dungeon Pets, like those are paper tiles that are
True.
moving. Or they're cardstock, but they're not. They could have been cardboard, although that would make the production way more
And not to
expensive.
mention, they also have all those meeples in the Dungeon Pads. They
Yeah.
have
Oh,
the
yeah.
board is
They
not
weren't
small.
meeples. They were the goblin tokens.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I agree with you, but I do want to give a shout out to Raw as far as that goes because that production is really neat.
Honestly, it's probably one of the ugliest games I played, and it does not play well over
No.
computer. We found this out
Yeah.
because I'm like, what in the heck is
Yeah.
that?
Yeah, you had to download a reference sheet and everything. I want to show this to you in person one day. I
Yeah, I honestly, I wasn't enthralled with it as much as you are.
I know. I like
I'm
Raw
a
better
kid.
than Dungeon Pets, but
I'm not a Knizia fan. You're a
Sure.
fanboy for Knizia over here.
true. True. I
Anything
don't disagree with
comes
that.
up with, I mean, you basically made a bootleg copy of Llama just where you could try it out before it came to the States with
Right.
the cars.
And then
That's how much
guess
of a
who bought
fanboy
it?
you are of
I almost bought
Knizia.
2 copies of Llama because one's worn out because I played it so much.
Yeah, I'm not. It's okay. It's probably one of the better Knizia games I've ever played, but that's not saying much.
Because it's one of the 4, if that many.
Like
I don't
I
know.
said, the one
So-
game that I thoroughly enjoyed and liked of his was Blue Moon City.
Yeah, I don't blame you. All right, so let's go down the list. Ease of play goes to Raw.
Raw, hands down.
Yeah. Art and production, Dungeon Pets. Meaningful choices, Dungeon Pets.
Pets.
Yep. Replay value, Dungeon Pets.
Yeah.
And immersion, Dungeon Pets. So,
Yeah.
all right, cool. Then Dungeon
So-
Pets moves on.
No, my one memory of Dungeon Pets when we played it was just like, oh my god, my head hurts. What is going on here?
Yeah, I mean, in that I took my bias out of it. I'm being fair to Dungeon Pets because I do respect the fact that it's a good game. I just the biggest detriment to it is the fact that we're arguing auction games and it goes against
Alright.
Raw. You know.
So, Biblios was our number 6 game with 2 votes.
Okay.
Abyss was our least voted game and sitting at 7, which means there was a tie with 1 vote.
Yeah.
Next on our list here that got eliminated was El Grande, which was 3. So next on our list was Raw, which was 4. Raw was sitting at 7 votes. It was the
Wow.
5th game on our list, vote get wise. And El Grande, which was our number 3 game overall, was actually our number 6 game. It was the one tied with Biblios with 2 votes.
Wow. Well, glad those don't have to face each other in the long run. So our next round will be Power Grid versus For Sale and 5 Tribes versus Dungeon Pets. So stay tuned for that. We'll be right back. And welcome back to the semifinals of Top 8 Debate Auction Bidding Games. So far we have had 4 eliminated, 4 go on, Power Grid and For Sale, and 5 Tribes versus Dungeon Pets. We have reseeded them, so that way it's our lowest ranked. For Sale was number 6
Highest rank.
versus our highest ranked Power Grid, which was number 1, and 5 Tribes, which was number 2, versus Dungeon Pets, which was number 5.
So there's one upset, really. I guess 2 per se, if you consider Dungeon Pets an upset. But I don't really ever consider a 4-5 an upset because they're pretty close for that reason.
Yeah.
So
For Sale beating El Grande.
yeah, that was the big one. I tried to get Abyss just because I think Abyss just an easier game to play and get to the table than say
Yeah,
Five Guys.
it's just weird. It's it's simplistically convoluted in a way. Like, I don't have a good way to describe it other than that. Like,
Yeah, I get what you
I
mean.
felt like I completely understood it, yet I had no idea at the same time.
Funny story about Abyss. It's a card game that has a board, and the reimplementation of it takes out the card or the board part of it. It's just simply a card game now.
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
From what I understand, they're turning it into a straight card game.
Well, that makes sense. I mean, it's like the new Whale Riders game. That's a board game, but they're also releasing a card game version of it.
Well, what's funny is they have a social deduction game in the Abyss universe now too.
I mean, I like social deduction, but
Not a fan.
what?
Yeah.
I wouldn't play
From
that.
what I understand, yeah, there's going to be a social deduction, or it's already out in Europe. I don't know exactly for sure. I mentioned it before, and I didn't explain this on the podcast. The reason why it was so hard to get one of the expansions for Abyss was because Bombex lost their U.S. distributor for a while. That's why you couldn't get the expansion here. It's just started coming over because I think Asmodee or something like that.
Yeah, Bombex went with Asmodee. All right, interesting. Well, let's go on to Power Grid versus For Sale. Now, you tolerate, or you like For Sale.
Oh, I love For Sale.
You very much dislike Power Grid. I like both of these a lot. But I will take my bias out of it because I understand that.
I'll take my bias out of it, how much I dislike Power Grid, but the fact of the matter is, I think For Sale is the one that should move on, and the reason why I'm going to say it is, one, it wins Ease of Play hands down. Probably one of the easiest games to learn out there.
Yeah.
Replay value, I'll give to Power Grid.
Yep. Yeah, replay value has to go to Power Grid.
So here's my iffy part is when it comes down to meaningful choices.
Okay.
The impacting other player and long-term strategy stuff, they're both really major in, say, Power Grid and For Sale. Because even though For Sale is just a small little card game, it's very important that you play smartly in this. And this is why, even if we call those other two a wash, I give meaningful choice to For Sale. And it's because you cannot make an arbitrary choice in For Sale, or it's going to affect the end game for you. Power Grid, yeah, I could say the same for Power Grid itself, but there is just going to be times where you're just going to have to make an arbitrary choice.
I'm going to argue for a wash, and the reason being is because I don't think that there's a single time in Power Grid that you can make an arbitrary choice, because the cards are almost set. You know what's coming out when. When I played this against three other players who were definitely seasoned veterans as far as Power Grid goes, and it wasn't even close. I was definitely last place. They were first, second, and third, and the guy who won first place won it by $1. Had they bid him up just one more time, he would not have won, and that's how. And he had been planning this whole time. He had been counting his cash. He had been getting that. He was like, I know what station is coming up. I know what I need to get. I know exactly how many resources I can do. I know what turn order I'm doing. This is crunch time. I have to do it.
Fine. I'll give you a wash. That's fine, because honestly, there's going to be something I think that's going to push For Sale over. So we'll go ahead and talk art production first.
Okay.
And
art goes to For Sale.
For Sale.
I don't disagree.
Components. So here's the thing: we're talking about the base set of pieces and components when it comes to Power Grid and to
For Sale.
For Sale.
Yep.
For Sale has those really decent plaster and the cardboard pieces for the coins, and then the card stock's really nice. You have the pieces and components are mainly just cubes and Power Grid, unless you get the upgraded resources to it.
Right. Well, yeah, the Power Grid resources, they do make sense for what they're doing. Mostly. They do have quite a bit of wooden components. The card quality in Power Grid is actually really good, and the board is a solid board.
The same could be said about For Sale. Their card quality is amazing, even though it's a card game.
Theirs is not, actually, and the finish that's on it.
Which version are you talking about?
Eagle Griffin.
Because the one that the travel version has really nice card stock.
The card stock is good, but let me show you something. This is...
Again, he's making it a show and tell.
No.
Again, we gotta stop doing this. We have audio listeners.
I agree, but the these cards, they're good quality, they're linen finish, but the coating that's on it gets sticky. You cannot spread these out. You can't.
Well,
They
Danny,
clump.
I'll explain what you can do not to get them sticky.
No, you know what? This is coming from my Magic background. Doing that as a fan is awful. The Power Grid cards are better quality than this. Just trust me on that.
I'll give you the art on that, but
The tokens are fine. The tokens are fine. They're good for what they are.
better
It
than
does.
the Quack to Quinlanburg tokens, apparently.
Yeah, these punched out pretty well, which we won't talk about. Now,
I think the graphic design is better in
and for sale,
for sale.
agreed. I don't disagree with that. I do think that the symbology that's needed in Power Grid is just slightly more complex than this, which is very important because this is very. Although, the only other argument that I would have for the graphic design on it is the check cards.
Not even.
Let me find them. Yeah, the check cards. They are. Or they're just money values. There's other versions that have like it's like checks, you know.
So for our audio listeners, again, Danny's showing and telling cards.
Yeah.
And I've been trying to get him to stop for our audio listeners.
Yeah, okay. This is a different version than the ones that I saw with the checks. Yeah, the checks are just kind of small, like they're just kind of weird.
Yeah.
But it's ultimately almost the same thing. So, but I don't disagree. I would give art and components.
Which would move for sale on.
Yes.
And the reason why I think it should have moved on anyways, even if it went to a tie,
Mm-hmm.
would be game immersion. Again, dematching
Yes.
mechanism.
Yeah.
Right there alone. Interacting with other players. You do have it in Power Grid.
Yeah.
But with this one, you have to be a lot smarter, especially since it moves so quickly. And then memorable moments. The only memorable moment I remember from Power Grid is giving you a stink eye.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
you didn't explain a rule very well.
Okay. I don't disagree with that. I mean, you make some valid points for it. That's not to discredit Power Grid. And I do think that you were mostly trying to keep your bias out of it. Mostly.
Yeah, no, I am. In all honesty, other than the memorable moments, is the only time I actually brought up the bias into
yeah.
it, just because I remember how vividly it's like, you've got to be kidding me. We've been playing this game that should not be as long as it is. I have not played it since because of that. Because it was a slog. It just was like, oh my god, this game never ends.
Yeah.
And when I say overstay its welcome, this one truly overstayed its welcome, and mainly because things weren't explained very thoroughly. And you keep saying that I need to get it to the table and play it again, but honestly, after all the other Friedman and Freeze games I've played, nah.
Yeah, you're probably not going to like it. I'm curious to see now because of Power Grid, I'm curious to try Brass. Because I've heard those comparisons a lot, that they're just heavier economic games. Like
Yeah.
I want to see how I'd feel after playing Brass one of these days.
I do enjoy Brass. It's complicated to teach, but it's easy once you. It's one of those games that is easy to get going or learn as you go along. It's just that when it switches over to the second part of the game, so at first it's canals and then it switches over to trains.
Yeah.
Where it can get a little iffy because things get taken off the board and flipped to trains.
Sure, that makes sense. All right, so that moves on for sale.
Yep. And it will be the lower seed no matter who moves on to the finals.
There we go. So let's talk about Five Tribes and Dungeon Pets.
Oh boy.
This will be tricky to take our bias out of it.
Yeah, it's going to be very important for this. So take whichever one you want. I'll take Dungeon Pets again just because I'm probably the one that remembers it the most.
Yeah, I'll take Five Tribes.
Alright, go ahead.
Alright, so Five Tribes, the reason why I think it should move on, and I do truly believe that, is that even though it has less of an auction mechanism in it, that auction mechanism, the bidding, getting negative points for it, is a very valuable thing once you reassess the board. Dungeon Pets, yes, you do have the number of goblins you're sending to each of the different areas, but that's less valuable in a way because of the fact that you are kept in the dark of the other players' bids. It's a blind bidding mechanism. So I played a game called Revolution, and Revolution is by Steve Jackson Games, and I'm comparing it because it has a similar. It's an area control game, but it has a very similar location bid, and what you're bidding on each of the location spots. Same with like the goblins is going to the locations. The fact that it's a blind bid though, gives you way less choice. You just have to assume. Now it makes it kind of, anticipating, and it makes it fairly fun, but that doesn't mean that it loses as far as long-term strategy, as far as meaningful choices go, because you're thinking, okay, well, they will likely bid 3 here. I will probably bid 4. Oh, they bid 1. Wow, I'm out 4. That's a small blip in it. Five Tribes I just feel is a better game. It does play quicker than Dungeon Pets. It does a lot of the same strong choices for both of them, and you can't really make arbitrary choices on either. But Dungeon Pets is honestly convoluted for what it is.
I won't disagree with you, and honestly, I'm in full agreement with you that Five Tribes should move on. And the reason being is I was trying to find like a plausible argument to make Dungeon Pets go on, and I'm going through our 5 categories here. Ease of play, I would have to give to Five Tribes slightly.
Yeah, slightly.
So when it comes to simplicity and familiarity of the mechanism, more people know what Mancala, worker placement too, but the fact that the worker placement is also being a bidding aspect of it gives it a little bit more convolution than it needs to be. Whereas simplicity and familiarity of the mechanism, Five Tribes, the main mechanism is the Mancala, and the bidding is very simple. It's just turn order.
Yeah, and even area control, it's like, oh, if you remove the last meeple, you get that tile. That's it.
The only one that I think Five Tribes loses and ease to play is the likeliness to get to the table on the initial try, because I just think people are more likely going to want to play a Dungeon Pets game, especially when you're thinking about like Dungeon Keeper and stuff like that, the old computer game. It's likely to get more to the table, even though Days of Wonder, if you say, hey, I got a new Days of Wonder game, a lot of people are going to say, hey, let's get that to the table. But I'm trying to take gamers out of it and put more into playing with people who are semi-gamers, but not like into the hobby like we are.
Well, the Dungeon Pets theme is what got me to buy it. Like, that's a really cool theme. Five Tribes, like it says, like, oh, there's 5 tribes.
So
okay.
Both have a big possibility of AP proneness.
Yes.
I would just say Five Tribes is a little bit less likely than Dungeon Pets, just because there is so much going on. It's very convoluted when it comes to Dungeon Pets. And that is not saying something. That we have this mutual friend that we will not play either one of these games with.
Right. There is one that I'd consider playing with him. But here's the thing. Dungeon Pets, the reason why it's more AP prone is because every turn you have to see who played how many goblins to which spot, and then figure out how you're going to play it out.
Yeah, exactly.
Whereas Five Tribes, everything's there. You still have to figure out the puzzle, but it doesn't change every turn. Like, there's sure some meeples move.
And that's not the auction, it's just the way the Mancala mechanism works, which could open a more powerful move for you on the way as someone else is doing something.
Yep, exactly.
Where Dungeon Pets is you have to pay attention to everything, which forces you to be more like, oh god, oh god, oh god, oh god, oh god, oh god.
Yep. Yeah, and really that only requires you to look at the 4 tiles that they place meeples on, or however many that they move. You just look at those tiles. If you already had a plan over in the other corner of the board, you'll probably stick with the plan.
So, especially, if you're on the other side of the board, you're like, okay, I'll do that. I'm just checking something out here for the replay value of it. We know we've talked about Five Tribes, and it has, 3 expansions? You said 2 big ones and 1 small one?
2.5, yeah.
I'm looking to see, because we've only played the base game of Dungeon Pet, so...
I don't believe it has expansions. I might be wrong.
That's what I'm looking up right now.
Okay.
Well, while we do that, length of time and scaling well. Five Tribes, hands down.
Yeah. Five Tribes plays fewer or better range of people. Dungeon Pets is just super long.
Yeah, Dungeon Pets is really long. So it looks like there is one expansion and two like little promo packs. So you have Dungeon Pets, the Blob promo, and then you have Dungeon Pets bonus pets. But then there is also Dungeon Pets Dark Alleys. So I
Interesting.
think that's the one expansion. So expandability would go to 5 tribes.
So
So
that pushes 5 tribes on.
yep. Well, that's only the 2, but you go to meaningful choices again like that. The only one, just because I'm looking at it right now, the only one I would give Dungeon Pets over 5 tribes on all honesty is the art, because
Art and
the
production.
Dungeon Pets are quite adorable.
Yeah, the art on there, the production is better. I mean, that's saying
I don't know about the production is better on
Oh,
Dungeon
yeah.
Pets.
those goblins, the board itself, the graphic design does make sense.
I don't know, but 5 tribes, you got those big chunky
Wooden
trees, the
trees,
camels.
yeah.
You have the meeples that are really nice. The artwork is nice on it, but again, we're not talking about it. But you have the cardstock is really nice in Dungeon Pets.
Sure.
Or I mean, in 5 tribes, the cardstock's really nice. The tiles are really nice when you're setting up that grid. So the art, or when it comes down to the production part of it and components, I would give that to 5 tribes.
I wouldn't personally, because I do like the way that graphically how everything works on the
I'll give
board.
the graphic design to Dungeon Pets.
Right, but the
pieces
components,
of components.
I mean, those goblin meeples versus regular meeples are pretty awesome.
The
But-
goblin meeples, but you're not taking into effect the palm trees that get put on the board. You're not taking
But
into
they
effect-
cover up spots of the board.
They cover a corner on the board. But
Yeah.
the camels too. The cardstock I prefer in Days of Wonder Productions, anyways.
Yeah, that's true. They always have good. They don't,
And then
those cards
going
don't
to-
stick
going
together.
To your little paper thing that you were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
Is a bit of an issue with Dungeon Pets. You don't have that
Yeah.
kind of issue when it comes to
Yeah,
5 tribes.
at best I would call it a wash for the components, but it still goes to 5 tribes regardless because the art.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
And then that would give it basically 3, but also meaningful choices. They both really have meaningful choices impacting
Yes.
other players and long-term strategies.
Yeah.
But when it comes down to it, you have to make less arbitrary choices in 5 tribes to even stand a chance.
Yeah. Yeah, you have to. You're on a constant uphill battle with Dungeon Pets. Now, the thing is, you still have really long-term strategy. How long are you going to feed the pet? What resources do you need to accommodate it?
Or
What
do you
kind
make
of
the
pen
pet
do you do?
disappear and then get some meat out of it?
Right. There's a
Send
lot
it
of
up to a farm.
there's a lot of very, very meaningful choice as far as how you raise the pet. The problem is you have a lot of stuff you need to do, and because of other players, you're not going to have enough time to do it in, or enough resources to do it in, and that's less of a choice on your end and more of a detriment to the quality of it. So even though 5 tribes is simpler, it's still a more meaningful choice game.
Yeah, and then say we go into game immersion itself, the matching mechanism, I would say it's a wash when it comes to it because it's both important to the game, but it's not the main part of the game.
Well, yeah, because they both
'Cause-
kind of have the idea of the earlier to rise you have, the earlier the meeples or whatever, or you wake up in the morning, the more you can get done, but the less energy you're gonna have.
Yeah, exactly. And then interacting with other players in the table talk. Again, for me, this hands down that part right there is 5 tribes, just for the simple fact that mind you, I've only played Dungeon Pets once, but with 5 tribes, there's a lot of table talk going on, especially when it comes down to the Moncala part of it.
Yeah.
When you're like, oh, there's a good combo. Hopefully, I'm the only one to see it, and then you do it, and I'm like, God,
Yeah. Or you add one more meeple to it, you're like, now I can't mathematically do this anymore. Yeah.
You ruined me. You suck. And it
Yeah.
goes along with the memorable moments too. I've had some stand-up moments when I'm like, "Oh my god, it's gonna work! It's gonna work!" And I would able to pull it off. 5 Tribes is one of the few games I can that I only win a few, or not one of the few games, but it's one of those games that I don't win a lot, but when I do, it's very fun.
Yeah.
It's a magical moment, I guess you could say.
Their memorable moments for me actually would go to Dungeon Pets because you're naming the pets. You're like, this is little Ivor here, you know. He's only killed 3 people this week, so we're working on it, you know. Like there's a lot of fun backstory that it leads to.
Yeah,
But-
I like that, but I just think 5 Tribes gets it just because
Agreed.
the fact that it's gotten played more. So.
Agreed. So 5 Tribes moves on.
Yep, and
Which-
it will be facing 4 Cell, which is going to be tough because I love both these games.
All right. That's
So before we go, Power Grid was our number one vote getter at 36 votes.
yeah.
In Dungeon Pets was our number 3 vote getter at 10.
All right.
So the two left are Five Tribes and For Sale.
We'll see who moves on. So hang out with us real quick. We're going to pause the video for just a moment, and we'll be right back. And we are back to the finals for auction bidding games top 8 debate. We have For Sale and Five Tribes, the battle of the F. 2F spiel. You like Freedom and Freeze, right? Anyway, let's go on.
So glad they eliminated Freedom and Freeze out of this category.
You know why?
All the way to the semis.
I truly believe the reason Power Grid got eliminated is because it's a Freedom and Freeze game that doesn't start with F. That's the only explanation, right?
No, it went up against For Sale. That's the problem.
Right. That's true. I mean, that design really does stand on its own.
And so just a reminder to all our viewers at home and audio listeners as well, the way we do this, we're not picking a game this time. We're going strictly through the breakdowns of the 5 categories and their subcategories to determine which is the best overall auction bidding game, as decided by us and our cheat sheets.
So the first one that I want to say is super obvious, ease of play, For Sale.
For Sale.
Yeah.
Hands down. Because if you go into it, simplicity and familiarity of the mechanism, it's real simple. You use this to buy this, and then in turn you turn those into those.
Yeah. Art and production would go to Five Tribes. And not because...
I'll give you that hands down.
Yeah.
No, ease of play goes to For Sale.
Yep. Even though I think the graphic design makes more sense in For Sale, the art and the component quality is better in Five Tribes.
No, I don't disagree with you. Now, if For Sale came with like metal coins out the box, then it might be a little different story.
And better card quality, yeah.
Because the art is gorgeous, but then again, the art's gorgeous in Five Tribes too. You look at those Jids and you're like, wow, they look pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah, I like both of them. I mean, For Sale is more cartoony, but that just adds to the flavor. All right, so now we have...
value, I would have to give it to Five Tribes.
Okay, and that's because minimum number of plays...
To For Sale is the length of time and scaling well.
Yes. Yeah, but as far as additional content and
minimum number of plays.
Minimum number of plays. Okay. So Five Tribes gets the point for that. Now, here's the thing. Meaningful choice. Meaningful choice, I would say, goes to For Sale. Because... I
would say that too, because of the impacting of the other player. The only time impacting the other player, or I would give that to Five Tribes itself, because of the way the Mancala works.
Yes.
But the long-term strategy, how best to use your cards in the auctioning part of it, and you cannot make an arbitrary choice in that game, really.
No, you really can't. The only arbitrary choice that you can make, in as far as For Sale goes, is just in what order do the cards come out, and when best to use your... But the thing is, it's all public knowledge. Everyone knows what numbers there are. There's no... with the exception of, I think, like, 2 or 4-player games, you remove, like, 1 or 2. But you know generally what's in there. It's not a cut and dry choice.
Yeah.
So meaningful choice.
I would give you that For Sale as well.
Okay.
And now here comes the fun part.
Game immersion. Okay.
So we're gonna go ahead and break these down through the subcategories, just to make the finals a little bit longer and a lot more entertaining.
Sure. Yeah. So we have theme
matching mechanism.
Okay. So let's talk about just the auction mechanisms, and then let's talk about the overall mechanisms and what makes sense. If we feel like we need to do that. But as far as auction, you're buying and selling real estate. It really would go to For Sale because of the fact that that's really how it works. You're trying to get houses for cheap that are better quality and sell them for more money. That's why realty is a thing. That is it's a very simplified version of that, but that is really what they're doing. Whereas the auction bidding, it's like, can I pay more money to take an earlier day? Like, well,
which could be important, but not just because you want to make sure you get that move that you think would be most impactful for you.
Exactly.
But to be truthfully honest, the matching mechanism has to go to For Sale.
Yes, it does. So that's
interacting with other players on a game level, not where we're talking about impacting other players. in meaningful choice where we're
We're
making
talking
impactful
table talk.
choices that affect. Yeah, table talk. To
Yeah.
me, and I know this is going to bother you because and we're going to argue about this. I'm going to give it to Forcell
For table talk?
for table talk. Because a lot of Forcell, or a lot for Five Tribes, mainly is what I've brought up. The fact that someone took a move or broke a move for you, and it's fun.
And you go,
like that. A lot of times
right.
when you're playing Five Tribes, it's a lot like this.
Yeah. Now, the
Whereas
question
Forcell, it's more trash talking. You don't want that. You don't want to do that. You don't want don't worry about bidding in there. It's more of that trash talk, that interaction,
right,
which gives it that party game feel without it being a party game.
Well, this is what makes it interesting is the fact that the auction leads to that. Like, if I see you're bidding me up, I know you're still gonna have to pay half of your money for the card. So if I put in a single coin just to up the bid, just sit back and stare at you. Your move, sir. You know, that it leads right to that part. And then the second half of the game plays so fast because it's simultaneous bid. But the first half of the game, that auction bid, and knowing that the money is finite, you're not spending more than what the number of tokens you have, hands down. So
and another thing that I like about it too, for the interacting with other players, is when you're going into that second part, you know what everybody has in their deck because they all paid for it as you go along. So you're sitting there like, ooh, is he going to throw that 20 for this point total or for this money card right here? Or is he going to just kind of play it safe? And because we know there's a bigger card coming up, so is he going to save his big card? Like, say someone has the space station. Are they going to save the space station to guarantee themselves the big card that's coming out? And so... Or does he play it now? So, yeah, I think the interacting with other player goes to Forcell.
Right. And that means immersion. And honestly, memorable moments, I think, goes to Forcell anyway.
Forcell as well.
Yeah, so that means Forcell beats Five Tribes 2-3 as the best auction game.
Bidding, yeah.
Auction bidding.
And as much as I love Five Tribes, I don't consider it an auction bidding game.
Then why'd we even have it in this list? No, I'm kidding.
No,
I'm kidding.
We have it in the list because of
it is,
because it is. It has a component to it in there. But for straight up auction and bidding, Forcell is probably one of the best games I've ever played. Not just in auction and bidding, and overall. I wouldn't say my top 10 or 20, but it's up there. Like if someone says, "Hey, let's bust out Forcell," hands down, I'll play it, and I might even play it above Five Tribes, just depending on the mood, because. Especially after we play, like, say, a heavy game.
Right.
I don't know if I want to play another heavy game right after we're Forcell. After a heavy game or a medium weight game, just a little palate cleanser that takes 10 minutes. Yeah, hands down.
No, Forcell is brilliant in that fact. I mean, and honestly, I'm glad Forcell won because I would have a hard time explaining, oh yeah, Five Tribes is the best auction game. It beat Raw and Forcell. What are you... Like, people would completely discredit us immediately after seeing that result. But, I mean, that being aside... This validates my point that as much as I love big Euro like board games, it's almost it's rare to find these card games that are so meaningful. This Jaipur, there's countless others. Like there's nothing.
Archaeology, the New Expedition.
Even then, I would consider that like a lower tier compared to like just like pure like there's something so. In my opinion, I wouldn't say this would beat out Forcell.
I love Archaeology, and you're wrong on that aspect. Just for the simple fact that because we played it when we had that game night the other day,
right?
And to the point where our buddy texted us and like, "What is that or that Egyptian game that we played, card game that we played?"
Well, that's the beauty of Phil Walker Harding games. I mean, Silver and Gold and all that stuff. What I'm saying is that like it's rare to find one of those just pure. Like wholesome card games that are so simple yet do what they are trying to do so effectively.
And how
this
do you not
Jaipur,
Archaeology in there? That
Lost Cities.
One of the simplest card games.
Lost Cities is just kind of like you draw what you get.
Kick that game to the curb. Throw it in the trash. Burn it in fire.
The problem I have with Archaeology in comparison to those is that you get what you get. If you're drawing a bunch of the masks, the Pharaoh's masks, and the coins, and the higher value stuff, and I'm only drawing parchment scraps. You know, like I don't have as much
with parchment scraps in what you might call it the sharp part shop hold on, let me say it. Shards of pot. There we go.
Yeah,
Pot shards. There we
pot
go.
shards. Yeah, I agree, but it's a lot. You have less options. You have less to trade. I'm just saying it's a fine filler game. It's perfect for what it is. I really like it, but it's not. It doesn't hold a candle to something like Jaipur or For Sale or something that's just so pure and simple that it's elegant. That's the definition of elegance, in my opinion.
Your opinion is wrong. We've already established this.
And you're just
You've
a
been
bully.
called out a many of times.
You're just a bully. You're just a meanie
it's not
face.
Just me, though. How many people have disagreed with you on so many levels?
You just agreed with me on For Sale that it beat out Five Tribes.
Well, yeah, For Sale, but I'm also arguing the mechanism and that it's the best in that. Out of these two, I'd probably play, if I had a choice, and I'm okay with playing a heavier game, I'd play Five Tribes, hands down.
And I would play For Sale.
But out of the two, I'd play Five Tribes. Just because I like those meaty Euro games, and I'm a Bruno Cathala fanboy, I'm not going to lie.
Yeah. I'm going to rank these.
Says, hey, this is a new game by Bruno Cathala. I'm going to be like, what?
I'm gonna rank these games, like all 8 that we talked about, real quick. I'm gonna rank them in which one I would want to play, like, at any given moment. For Sale is probably number 1 for me. Yeah, probably Five Tribes number 2. Raw, Biblios, El Grande, Power Grid, Abyss, Dungeon Pets.
So for me, it would go, and I'm going to go top to bottom, or bottom to top, so I'm going to say the number 8 first. Power Grid.
Yep, I figured that.
Number 7 is Raw. Number 6 would be, ooh, this is tough. Probably Dungeon Pets.
Okay.
Number 5 would be Biblios.
Uh-huh.
Number 4 would probably be, let's see here. What haven't I said? That one.
Power Grid. You haven't said that.
Oh, I said Power Grid. Power Grid's 8. Number 4. So what I haven't said is Abyss, For Sale, probably El Grande.
Yeah.
And then 2 would be, or no, 3 would be For Sale, 2 would be Five Tribes, and Abyss would be number 1.
So our lists are actually almost the same, with like Abyss moving, like, and that's because Abyss is cool, but I just like.
But then again, as much as I like small filler games, to me they're just simply that, they're small filler games. If I had a choice, I'd take the meatier game over the filler game any days of the week. I would choose Emotep over Archaeology just because I want to play the meatier game. I want that brain go.
Yeah, I would consider Imhotep. I tend to aim towards the games that I consider more elegant. So like Imhotep, I would play over Archaeology. I would, and honestly, but like Azul, I would play over Imhotep. There's less to do in Azul, but I feel it's more elegant. I just really like what it does.
I would probably pick Imhotep over, and again, you're going for the elegance. I'm going for the meat and potato. I want something that's gonna intrigue and work my mind, especially in my old age here.
You're just stepping towards the grave right here.
Yeah, so because I'll be 36 in a month. I'm not that old, but I'm just saying I'm going to be 36 in a month. So I want to keep my mind fresh. I used to do reading for that matter, and I still read, but for me, board gaming is the one that gets my brain flowing.
Yeah,
so with that,
which is why
and we're running this a little long. So let's go ahead and do the wrap up.
All right, and that's actually why I like to do like those logic puzzle things. Love it. Sudoku, good fun stuff. No Picross, but I like Picross better. But Sudoku, it's pretty up there. All right. Anyway, if you want to see us join in on the debate live, join us on Fridays at noon on twitch.tv/everydayboardgamepodcast. That's noon Mountain Daylight Savings Time.
And then you can also see the re-uploads of these videos in about 1 to 2 weeks on Everyday Board Games 2020 on YouTube.
As well, you can contact us directly at everydayboardgames2020@gmail.com.
You can also find us on Twitter at EBG Podcast 2020. Also, it'll have a link in a pinned tweet that will have all the links to all our channels that you can watch us on or listen to us to, because you can also find the audio versions of these podcasts at Podbean, at Everyday Board Games Podcast.
And if you like or disagree with what we debated today, comment down below. Let us know your thoughts and why you would vote for one over the other. But with that being said, we want to thank everybody for tuning in. I've been Daniel.
And I've been Daniel.
And this has been Everyday Board Game Podcast.
Have a good one.